benefit. So welcome, everyone. It is a pleasure for me to be with you this evening, and the double pleasure is to have meta coaches. All of you are meta coaches on this session this evening. That makes it doubly exciting for me to have the three of you together this evening. So welcome to the Systemic Coaching, Making Coaching Systematic. This is part of our monthly meta coaching system series. I covered the series on neurosemantics. That's the first Thursday of the month. The second Thursday of the month on self-leadership. The third Thursday of the month, that's now, this Thursday, it's on meta coaching system. And the fourth Thursday is on parenting. So it's a pleasure to be in the company of fellow meta coaches. And I hope that what I will be bringing this evening will be something that is to your benefit. For those people who are watching this on recorded video, I'm Marzuki. I'm a neurosemantics trainer and meta coach. I represent Malaysia in the international leadership team of the International Society of Neurosemantics, and I help people like you to systematically develop skills in leading, communicating, and coaching to bring out the best in yourself and others. In the wow, suddenly I see Vanessa there. Hi, Vanessa. Pleasure seeing you. Okay. Now, in the 60 or so minutes together, we'll be discussing on the 7 things that coaching is, and also how meta coaching answers the systematic question. As usual, I will pause for discussion after each main point to invite questions, comments, and equally important, contributions. And I will just to also remind you, those of you who like to think out loud, I would like to hear your thinking as well. So that's why I have those pauses. Now, as you all know, my style is to be light and humorous. So if I laugh or smile, I'm never laughing at you, but at our silly human qualities. And one of the silly human quality that I'm currently laughing at is that I did not check whether the system that I set up work according to how I set up. So that's one of the silliness that we human beings go through, and to take it from the perspective of humor, to laugh at ourselves is part of our being human. Now, the meta coaching system, as an just to give you an overview, let me just switch on my screen sharing. Because I've prepared the slides here for you. The meta coaching system, this is the topic that I am bringing in the next in 2023 when it comes to meta coaching. It is the meta coaching system was founded by Dr. Michael Hall and Michelle Duval. Meta coaching is a system. Is this a systematic system which presents coaching in a structured way? Now, the objective of my bringing this to you, because this series is not from me. However, this series is based on the book written by Michael Hall. The book is called The Meta Coaching System. Now, the reason for my bringing this series to you in the meta coaching session is, one, for the benefit of meta coaches, we learn how to coach using the meta coaching system. At the same time, what's under the hood? What's powering the system that we are using? So that's the reason why I'm bringing the meta coaching system. Just like I was having a chat with Danielle just now, mentioning to her how my laptop, my MacBook Pro, it's working fine and dandy right now. However, it is already close to 10 years old. and I have to give some allowances that it might be slow under situations where I am, for example, doing editing, photo editing, because what's under the hood, the chip, the motherboard, it's already 10 years old and it cannot compete with the ones that are running today. With the new M1 Ultra, the newest one, it will not compete in terms of speed. However, it can still perform, do the jobs that I need it to do. So the similitude there is that when we as meta coaches learn about meta coaching, we went into the practical coaching, the practicalities of coaching, how to really coach. And for me, I find it really insightful to know the whole system, that is what's under the hood. Now it gives me greater appreciation of why it works. Okay, and also this session is also for people who are beginning to come into contact with meta coaching. You would like to know what's behind it. You might be wondering, when we talk about systemic, it is a system. What does that mean in relation to coaching? What are the structures that meta coaching has adopted? And some of you who are not yet, you have not yet delved into meta coaching, you might be wondering how that today meta coaching has become, by all accounts, the most systematic approach to coaching anywhere in the world. So those are the two primary reasons why I'm covering this topic on the meta coaching system. So with that, just to bring you back to the topic that we are discussing this evening, that is the systematic coaching. When we talk about how to make our coaching systematic, I'd like to bring to your attention the systematic question over here. So when we want to coach, and if I were to bring the systematic question into other areas, for example, into training or into consulting, when you create that systematic question, but if you are able to answer this question succinctly and accurately, then you have a system. So the systematic question to coaching is, how do you know what to do, when to do that, with whom to do that, how to pull it off in an effective way, and why to do that? So that's the systematic question that relates to coaching, and that is the question that we'll be addressing in this session for today. So what we'll be doing, just as an introduction over here, we'll be identifying the overarching framework for coaching. Now, in the book, The Meta Coaching System, Dr. Michael Hall, or Michael, brought to us the 7 things that are necessary and sufficient for coaching as a separate modality. What are they? One is conversion. The second one is reflexivity. The third one is systems and systems thinking. The fourth one is change and transformation. The fifth one is implementation and measurement. The sixth one is self-actualization of potentials. And the seventh is facilitation of processes. Now, when we have all of these 7 things in our coaching system, then it is sufficient for the coaching, and it is necessary in that coaching. Now, what I will be doing in a short while is I will be going through each and every of these points in detail. But before we do that, just to give you an idea when it comes to the meta coaching system, what informs, what is the foundation, what is the basic that all of these are used in the meta coaching system. So let me just count them here one by one, the models that we use to inform the 7 things that are used in meta coaching. So let's take the first one, which is communication. So when it comes to communication, the model that we use in meta coaching is the NLP Communication Model. What I firmly am convinced about is that the NLP Communication Model is currently the most advanced and complete model of communication that we humans know until today. So that's the model behind communication, because in coaching, we have conversation. So that's the first model. Then the next element of the 7 things that we look at in coaching is in-depth communication and self-reflexivity layering. So the model that informs us about this is the meta-states model. The third one is systems, and with systems, the model that we use in meta coaching is the matrix model. The fourth one is about change and learning. And when it comes to change and learning, the models that we use are the axis of change model and also the crucible model. So these 2 models inform change and transformation when it comes to coaching. The 5th point on implementation and embodiment is based upon the benchmarking model. So that's why when we bring change to detect how much change have we gone through in our coaching process. So that's where the benchmarking model comes in. And number 6, that is self-actualization of potentials. So the models that we use are the matrix of self-actualization, the self-actualization quadrants, and also the self-actualization assessment scale. So if you are not yet familiar with the self-actualization assessment scale and you would like to have a look at that, head to the Neurosemantics website, and there is a PDF downloadable document of the self-actualization assessment scale, and you can make your own personal assessment. Where are you at on that scale? And the 7th one is process facilitation, and for this we in meta coaching use the facilitation model. So these are the models that inform the 7 things that we use in meta coaching in order that the coaching that we bring to our clients, they are systematic and sufficient. So what I like to do is just to pause over here. I've just given an overview. In a short while, I would like to bring your attention to each of those points individually. So with that, I'm going to pause over here to invite any questions or any thinking out loud from any one of you. So by all means, go ahead. Anyone has got any comments, any questions, let's hear them. So go ahead, unmute yourself. I'd like to say hello to Hashim, join us from Klang, and also to Franska. So with Franska, I cannot speak too loud, otherwise baby might wake up. So, but I really appreciate Franska, your being being here, even though you need to take care of baby beside you. Thank you, Franska. Yes, anyone has got any questions or comments before we jump into all the 7 things?
Nice to be joining you again this evening, Mazuki.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I was listening to the meta coaching model that you were mentioning just now. There's quite a bit of things to learn there.
Oh, yes.
What attracts me is the process facilitation. Because today I was doing some training on process. So the word process means different thing to different people maybe. So in this way, you are facilitating the process of coaching, is it?
We are, yes, thank you. We are facilitating the process of thinking. So the inner game, we are facilitating that process. So when a person's thinking process cause hurt or harm, so we facilitate that thinking, feeling process, the meta stating process, so that a person can come back to a process of thinking, feeling in a way that is healthy. So that is what we are referring to, the process facilitation. We facilitate the individual's process of thinking, feeling, so that now their meaning making, the frames that they are putting on themselves becomes healthy. What was holding them back was they were running another way of thinking, feeling that caused them hurt or harm.
Okay, thank you. Very clear.
Thank you. Right. Alhamdulillah. So let's then move on to the first main item for this evening. That is the 7 things that coaching is. What are those 7 things? Because in order for us to make our coaching systematic, we need to identify what makes it systematic. So let's take a look at the first one. The first is conversation. Coaching is communication, a dialogue conversation. First and foremost, coaching is a conversation. It involves a wide variety of communication skills and is communication by its very nature. So as a coach and client attempt to understand each other, they co-create a dialogue to promote the client's development. That's what a coach primarily does. Facilitates a coaching conversation with the client. The purpose is to discover what the client understands about his or her situation, what the client wants, what the client has tried, and what the client wants to achieve from the coaching process. For a conversation to be a coaching conversation, the coach directs the client's focus to the here and now, to the client's intentions, hopes, dreams, perhaps fears and apprehensions, and responsibilities, and to the client's choices about what to do. This makes coaching a focused, intense, and intimate conversation. Yet, not all conversations are the same. So in meta coaching, what Michael has identified, there are 22 kinds of conversation. Please don't ask me to list down the 22 kinds of conversations. I'll have to refer to the book because I can't remember all of them. But suffice to say that I would just like to inform you, I do not want to go into detail. I'd like to inform you there are 6 core coaching conversations with individuals, and there are 6 coaching conversations for groups. There are 9 executive coaching conversations and 6 political conversations. So those make up the 22 kinds of conversations that are available in the meta coaching system. So that's the first one, coaching the first thing, what coaching is that it is a conversation. So the second thing about what coaching is reflexivity. Coaching is a deep, self-reflexive conversation. The conversation that the coach has with a client would be superficial and at the surface conversation if it wasn't for the special kind of consciousness that we humans have. Given our self-reflexive consciousness, the coaching conversation not only involves first thoughts and feelings that a client has about something, it also involves the client's second level of thoughts and feelings about the first level, and then the third level about the second, and so on. It is this reflexivity that makes human thinking and feeling layered, rich, complex, and systemic. So what coaching is, that's the second one. Coaching is a deep, self-reflexive conversation. So the third thing, what coaching is, systems. Coaching is systemic thinking and working. Systemic thinking and working. Coaching involves thinking and working systemically with the mind, body, emotion system of a human being. For this reason, coaching is not and cannot be described linearly in a straight line linear way. It is much too fluid, dynamic, and complex for that. So one of the ways we talk about this is through the use of the metaphor of a dance. So when I mention about dance, I wonder, Eldam, you're remembering the dances that you... so I'll not go there, Eldam, that's okay. maybe Vanessa...
bygones be bygones.
Yeah, so it is not linear. Coaching is like dancing with a client in communicating, understanding, listening, questioning, and engaging a client at both the primary level of thinking and feeling and at all the higher and meta levels of awareness. So coaching is systemic thinking and working. So that's the third thing, what coaching is. The fourth thing, what coaching is change and transformation. Coaching is change. The intense, intimate, and fierce coaching conversation generates change. The awareness, the self-discovery, and the exposure of the frames in the back of the mind, which reveal the structures of meanings, facilitates change. Change of meaning, of beliefs, of understandings, change of behavior, change of habits. So once all of those inside shifts and change, the outside also change. So most fundamentally, a coach is a change agent. After all, clients come to coaching in order to change from being just good at something, even very good at something, to being their best, to being the best that they can be, even excellent. So coaching is change. So that's the fourth thing, what coaching is. The fifth one is coaching is implementation and measurement. Coaching is executed embodiment. We bring it into the body to implement it. The reason for a coach to facilitate an intense and intimate coaching conversation is to enter the system, change it, and then implement the desired changes into everyday life. In this way, coaching aims to get results. It executes what a person knows and believes and the meanings that a person wants to make real in life. For coaching to be relevant and significant, the coach invites the client to identify the principles, concepts, and beliefs that the person wants to commission his mind, body, emotion system to experience, to implement it, and then measure the subtle, the discrete changes happening in the client's life. So that's the fifth one. Coaching is executed embodiment. You bring it into the body and execute it. And the sixth thing that coaching is self-actualization. Coaching is self-actualization. Coaching seeks to identify, develop, facilitate, and unleash human potential so that the clients become fully alive, fully human, and the best version of themselves. We call this self-actualization. Unlike therapy that is designed to get people over the past and up to the present so that they can be okay, coaching goes much further. It goes much, much further. Coaching looks for and activates all of the hidden potentials which a person may not even suspect to be available. It works to empower him to actualize, that is, to make real those potentials. It makes real what is possible as a potential within a person or a group. And I was just having a conversation with Rosita, my wife, last night. As far as human beings are concerned, I call that the end game. The end game for us humans is to actualize our fullest potential, because when our fullest potential becomes real, then we become humans that brings goodness, kindness, and compassion to other human beings. The reason why we human beings are being so hurtful and harmful to other human beings is that we have not fully actualized our best self. We are struggling in the jungle of the 4 deficiency needs. So by bringing ourselves to the highest level of self-actualization, so the whole journey of life is the journey of self-actualizing. So this is what coaching is. Coaching is self-actualization. And the seventh one here is that coaching is process facilitation. Coaching is this intense and fierce conversation that evokes clients to discover, develop, and unleash the person's highest meanings of vision and values so that it becomes the person's best performances. Coaching does this through the facilitation of all the previously mentioned processes. Unlike content facilitation, which facilitates the learning and development of an explicit model, process facilitation is content-free from the coach's perspective. That's because you, as the coach, use the client's content. When I say the client's content, the client's meanings, values, objectives, goals. And then you, the coach, as an expert in processes, you facilitate the client's motivation, decisions, creativity, integration. So that is what we are referring to. Coaching is process facilitation, not bringing in any content from me. I'm just bringing the process of how the client makes sense of their world and how they change that to help the client learn the process of meaning making values, objectives, goals in a healthy way. So those cover the 7 things that coaching is. So the 7 things are: 1 is coaching is communication. The second one, coaching is deep self-reflexive conversation. The third one is coaching is systemic thinking and working. The fourth one, coaching is change and transformation. Coaching is change. The fifth one is coaching is executed embodiment. Number 6, coaching is self-actualization. And number 7, coaching is process facilitation. So those are the 7 things of what coaching is. So I'd like to invite any questions or comments that any one of you has. So go ahead, just unmute the mic and go ahead. Are you good with that? No comments for now? Okay, thank you. So let's move to the the next point that I've prepared for you for this evening. We started off with the systematic question. So this point is on how meta coaching answers the systematic question. Yeah. So this is the systematic question. How do you know what to do, when to do that, with whom to do that, how to pull it off in an effective way, and why to do that? So that's the systematic question. So let's take a look at how meta coaching answers this question, the systematic question. So let's take the first one. Oops. That is what we do with a client. So what here, this is about content. We engage the person, relate, get rapport, and then launch into a coaching conversation, which in itself induces states and facilitates processes. While we ask questions and meta questions, we use the meta processes for facilitating the client to access and mobilize the needed resources so he can achieve his objectives. This gets to the heart of things, his meaning frames. It also gets to her style of meaning construction, thinking patterns, including cognitive biases and distortions. So this is about the content. Yeah. So what we do with a client is it goes in the content. So that's the first element. The second element is when to do what we do. This is about timing. When is the right moment to do something, and how can you tell? The beginning is the right time to get a well-formed outcome, which sets the relevancy of the conversations which follow. Then during the conversation, we look for those coachable moments when the client's readiness for change and or self-actualization suddenly appears. The timing for change depends on where the person is on the axis of change, motivation, decision, creation, or integration. We also check on the client's timing by noting where the client is in her matrix. Using the areas of the matrix model, state, meaning, intention, self, powers, others, time, or world, we know the area or areas activated in the client's experience. This informs us about where the person is and what's the right time to bring up one of these 8 dimensions of experience. So that answers the when to do what we do. It is all about timing. The next one is with whom we do so. So this is about personality. Given that personality is what we do, we read or calibrate to a client's states, meta states, frames, meta programs, and so on. By calibrating to these things, we can detect the personality patterns and style of the client and take that into account. Using the meta programs model, we seek to match the client's unique constellation of perceptual lens, such as the meta programs, which form the way as a person thinks, feels, and responds verbally and behaviorally. So we match with the client's personality. So with whom? With the personality that the client is giving to us. The next question on how we know what to do. So this is, next one. How we know what to do. This is about our skill. This is about the coach's skill. That's because specialized knowledge is required for recognizing the choices and possibilities for working with a client. And each model offers information and insight about how to pull off a given process. The facilitation model enables the coach to balance compassion and challenge. Well, that's a fine balance that a coach needs to make. Then the hundreds of patterns or processes in NLP. I wonder if you remember all the 150 or something patterns in NLP and neurosemantics offer tested strategies which a coach can conversationally facilitate a specific process. Each of these patterns has one or more elicitation questions which identify the contexts for when and when not to use the pattern. Now, as I'm mentioning this to you, Thursday afternoon is coaching day for me. So just this afternoon, I had a coaching client with me. And as I'm mentioning about these processes, as we went through the coaching conversation, the client informed me that he's in need of a certain process. So as neurosemantics practitioners, we understand the processes in place to be able to bring the process in just a few minutes to allow the client to get back at his or her resourcefulness. So this is where the skill of the coach coming in, because once you have in you the processes, then you can bring whatever is needed for the client, right? So the last one is why we make the choices. And this is about theory, to have the theory behind the things that we do. To function effectively, we need theoretical frameworks as psychological models in working to facilitate clarity, decision, creation, integration, change, self-actualization of individuals and organization. With a larger framework, a coach can now work strategically, knowing where she is with the client, the processes to use, and the reason to use any one of them at a given moment. For each factor, the governing model offers a theoretical explanation about the pattern. So that's why earlier when I showed to you the 7 things that we need in having a systematic conversation as a coach, I also shared with you the models behind the 7 things. So those models form this theory that allows us as meta coaches know why we do things in a certain way. Because without these models, we as coaches will be like struggling in the dark, grappling in the dark, trying to find, trying to look for ways of how to help the client. Okay, so I hope those help us meta coaches answer the systemic question. Okay, so coming back for sharing, I'd like to invite anybody who would like to ask any question or share any comments that you have with respect to how meta coaching answers the systematic question. Yes, Eldam, go ahead.
It's really, of course, fascinating and complex, the whole structure that we have. I think what constantly becomes a thought for the coach is, especially when you ask for what we do and why we do it. We know there are many ways to skin a cat, but what would you maybe advise us? If I use this pattern, for example, once I know what the client might need or might want to accomplish, what would you use as a way to evaluate if that was probably the most appropriate or the best pattern to use versus another? Sometimes there are patterns that are similar, right? That allow you to help the client maybe achieve a more resourceful state, of course, versus not, right? And some are similar. So maybe for me, just how you think through a process of where do you go. That the well-formed outcome, of course, is diagnostic.
Yeah.
Right. But once we identify, for example, how we can, so what goes on in your mind? And I'm sorry if the question might sound vague, but right, it's almost like off the cuff decision that you have to make at that moment of where to go. Right.
Yeah. So if I understand the question that you ask, Eldam, with respect to how I run my mind in order to identify what patterns to run, my approach to coaching is that it is not the word that you used just now, prescriptive. It is not so much as I, as the coach, needs to identify what's wrong exactly and prescribe the right so-called medicine that the client need. No, it is not. It is not that. My approach tends to be more experimental, because human beings are different. Just yesterday, I was reading an article that was written by. The article was written by the personal trainer, physical fitness trainer of Chris Hemsworth. You know Chris Hemsworth?
Oh. Yes. Thor.
Oh.
That looks like Thor. to me.
And so he was talking about the kind of training regime that he gave to Chris Hemsworth. However, at the end of the article, what he mentioned that stood out for me. He says that himself, I go through the same regime that I asked Chris Hemsworth to go through. So I do the same workout, I eat the same kind of food that I I ask him to eat in terms of his nutrition, in terms of his rest, in terms of his exercise. But my body doesn't become like his because my body is different. So similarly, when it comes to coaching, when I notice that a client needs to go through a certain obstacle or what, me thinking about so my mindset would be, maybe this process might work and maybe it might not, and I would offer to my client in that with that frame, are you ready to try this? Because I don't know whether it will work for you. It works for some people, it doesn't work for others. So if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the process. It's just that maybe there's no match. So when I bring it in that frame, and there is no pressure on the client. So I don't know. My style is to be light and humorous and fun, and I find that for many people that works. Does that give you some insight?
Yeah, I appreciate that fact about to be tentative about it. Of course, we are guided by the elicitation question
Yes.
of patterns to see if it matches where the block and the intention might be for the client. But at the same time, to be tentative about it, so that let's see if this works. I'm almost imagining like a doctor saying, take these pills and try it for the next 2 weeks and come back to me. and if it doesn't work, then let's try another thing. All right.
Yeah.
So thanks for that.
Thank you, Aldo. Yeah. And how about you? What's your thinking process when you're coaching a client?
I think it's similar. It's process oriented. It's not prescriptive. It's allowing the client to actually go through the process of owning and then resolving and finding strategies for himself. I guess maybe we know we are tentative, but I guess the question for me is what guides me in even, for example, saying that at this time let's try anchoring, for example, or this time let's try swish, right? So I know I'm guided by the but I guess sometimes the challenge would be if I wasn't able to diagnose it well enough. Right, quote unquote. So maybe the failure or the inadequacy to get to the heart of things, right? So at this point, I might just be addressing maybe the symptom or what's going on, but not at the core of that. So yes. Thanks.
Sometimes we misread things, so we may not get right. However, the other part of the part we talk about the skill of the coach. One of the skills of a coach is the skill of receiving feedback. So so I use that with the client to check with the client. So what did I do right and what did I not do right? Because that will tell me whether the client has achieved his or her objectives or not. So that's extremely useful. Yeah, thank you. So Guaching put in here, is there a systematic conversation pattern that we can learn to break the ice, making the client open up to share more stories about himself, like Oprah Winfrey? Two things I would like to mention over here. The systematic process you mentioned about conversation here. The pattern that we have is the pattern of building rapport. So in order to break the ice and all that, so in building rapport, what do we do to break rapport? So to be present, to be supportive. So those are the first and second skills of coaching, and to ask questions. So that's the third skill, bringing in. So that brings us into deep rapport with the client. So it more than breaks the ice. You start dancing already. the moment you do that. So the pattern is that listening, supporting, questioning. So that brings us to the point whereby we are ready to dance. So that's the pattern for us. At the same time, when we have a conversation with the client, and this is something that I pick up from Michael's wisdom presentation. Just that was last Saturday, right? When we have a conversation with a client, it is not just about stories about what's up there. The conversation is more focused. The question that we start off with, so what area of development do you want to talk about today? Because when we talk about a coaching client, they are there meeting us because they want to develop, they want to grow. They are not happy with where they are right now because they have a destination to go to. So at any point in time, the question that we ask, typically at the core, this is the distinction that I drew from Michael's talk the other day, was at the core of the question, what is it that you want? It is not just wide haphazard. What is it that you want? Oh, I want to have a vanilla ice cream. No, we are talking about, when we talk about what is it that you want, we are looking at what area of development that they are focusing on. So our conversation, when the client begins to open and speak with us, having that conversation, it is not just about stories. Yeah. Yes, the stories that they bring in the context of development. Yeah. So yes, Oprah is very good, very skilled in getting people to relate stories about their lives. However, as a coach, our focus is for them to bring stories that relates to a specific area of development that they are looking at. So that's why we say that coaching is not just any conversation.
Yeah. Sorry, Marzuki. May I clarify in number 7, process facilitation? I just want to understand how you're using the word content. So for example, you say from the coach's perspective, it's content free. And then I don't know if I might have missed it, but you said the client's content is the meaning, the objective, and the goal. So content free because I don't bring in content, right? Are you saying content only in the sense of story, or also the whole content of the client's experience? Is that what you're, because I used to think that content just means the details of the story versus structure, which is now the layer of meanings and the meta states and stuff like that. Please clarify to me how you're using the word content here.
Yeah. Content here refers to, one, yes, what's happening in the real world, who said what and all, that's part of the content. The other are the meanings, decisions. So as a coach, I don't bring those in. I just facilitate the process of how they are making those meanings. So yes, so as the coach, when I say I'm content free, I do not bring my meanings, my decisions, my judgment into the conversation. I bring in the process of how they are reaching their meanings. Because when we talk about meanings that can be toxic, meanings that can be hurtful or harmful, it is not for me to judge whether your meaning is toxic or not. It is for you to realize, is the meaning you are making causing you harm? Then only, if somebody comes up to me and say that, yeah, I had I had a client at one time came to me and say, so he a very young guy, and so he called me uncle. So uncle, I just want to tell you that I started smoking. So I say, okay, you smoke. So now I don't smoke. I have my value judgment about smoking, but my value judgment about smoking has nothing to do with my client. So until he says that, I want to stop that. Okay, so you want to stop. So as far as I'm concerned, he discovered that his content that is smoking is causing him harm. So the content, the evaluation doesn't come from me. I want to focus on how his thinking process is. Since he realized that what his behavior is causing him harm, then I can explore the thinking process to be able to help him come to a different way of thinking that can help him solve that. So I always say that my values are my business. It is not the client's business. The client's values are his or her business.
Okay, so Marzuki, just for categorization, when you say the client's content, that involves not only the stories, but also the meanings, the beliefs, the decisions. So
yes.
that all is part of his or okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Does that is that congruent with the way that you're thinking?
I think it's partly also because when we hear the client's story, right? We go behind the story, or I don't know if that's the right way to use it, right? In other words, the client crafts words to describe something, but then we ask, what are the meanings that he has added into the thought, for example, or the details, right? When he says my mother is a monster, for example, right? There's a detail there. There's a picture there, but then there's a belief behind that, right? So to me, the distinction is when we talk of belief. To me, before I thought that's not the content. That's just that's a structure. Okay. Of the thinking, right? So I just need a clarification on that distinction. Because when we say we focus on the structure of meanings behind the details itself, or the story itself. That's why we're not as interested in the story as we are, which you have pointed out several times, right? In the beliefs, the meta states about the
how I see content is both what's happening out there and their meanings and beliefs, because the meanings and beliefs, that's the inner game.
Yeah.
What's out there, that's the outer game. Both the inner and outer game are I consider as the client's domain. It's for the client to bring into the conversation. Yes, I bring the process.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, that's about what I said that we'll be sharing with you this evening. So what we have covered this evening, probably what I would like to recommend to you, that one thing that you can take away from this session this evening is that coaching as a field can be systematic. To make that happen, in meta coaching, we have identified what coaching is. So those are the 7 things that we talked about, what coaching is. And then we have specified the features of the structure and the models which can inform and guide us. So we've got, we talked about the 7 things, and there were about something like 10 models that we use in order to make coaching systematic. The 7 descriptions of what coaching is have been addressed by finding models for each of these factors. Then by making them explicit, we have made this systematic approach open to examination. The reason being is that we want the people who come later on, they can examine this and take it further from there to further develop. So coaching conversation is ultimately a conversation about beliefs which make up the client's current sense of reality. And as a coach, again, we talk about that that content part. A client's belief is the client's business. As a coach, my belief is my business. So I do not want to contaminate the client's model of the world unless it hurts or harm them. So that's when we explore further. If something already works with the client, by all means. I used to have this, probably as an example, whenever I go out in the morning for my morning walk, sometimes I do run, but mainly I walk nowadays. I see so many different ways of people running. And if I were to model it with world-class athletes, only very few people run the way that world-class athletes run. However, I remind myself, that's none of my business. If they want to run the way that you are comfortable with. If it doesn't bring you any pain or any injury, and it is healthy for you, just run the way that you know how to run. You don't need to change it to the way like Eliud Kipchoge runs, or Genzebe Dibaba runs. You don't need to run like those people. If it works for you, then it works for you. Unless the way that you run is causing you back pain, okay, then maybe you need to change the way that you run. So similarly, when it comes to coaching, I need to take myself out of the equation, just bringing in the process. And through meta coaching, we know that the process is very systematic because it is grounded in very strong models. So we have the models to work on. So that's probably what I would like to end with. So we've come to the best part of the evening, because at every time when I have these sessions, I would like to hear what is your key takeaway from this session. So I would just like to invite each and every one of you in a short while to share maybe one or even two takeaways that you have for this session. And as usual, I like to start off with the bottom of my screen. So Danielle, go ahead. So what's your key takeaway from this evening?
Thank you, Maruki. For today's session, I think I know that there's so much more that I don't know. So the way that you put the 10 model, wow, it looks so familiar, but yet I started to think what is that. So yeah, I think it's time to, to continue. I think it's still continue learning, but it's time to revisit the topic maybe in a deeper way. So thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Appreciate that from you. Guat Ching, you're next. Are you able to access your mic?
Yes. Okay. I think building a rapport is the first step for the meta coaching. Without the good relationship, right? It's a bit hard for the client to open up to tell you more, to tell you the true feeling or true story about their intention. Yeah. So then after that, use the well-formed outcome to build the pattern and slowly drive all the outcome that we want. Yeah.
Thank you, Guat Cheng. Appreciate that. And Franska, I noticed your note in the chat box. So I assume that baby is about to sleep beside you and you cannot speak. Is that right, Franska? But anyway, thank you for joining us. I appreciate that. Next, Hashim, go ahead.
my main takeaway is the two things that the first one is on the self-actualization. You know, when you are coaching, you are actually bringing up the person from not self-actualizing to self-actualization. There's another maybe a big step to a person who has been in slumber, for example, and he rises to be a more resourceful person. The second one that I pick up from this evening is the change and the learning, and because the change and learning is the biggest room for improvement in this world.
Yeah.
And when you have the approach, the coaching in the right way or in a resourceful way, then that change can happen. And that change, because the coaching will enable the person to change, even though he is above 40 years old.
Thank you, Hashim. I appreciate your takeaway there. Next, I'd like to invite Vanessa. Are you ready to go?
I'm just dizzy.
She's just sneezing.
So,
It's
Eldam, go ahead.
Well, you see, when we do our work, both of teaching and coaching, we do our best as much as possible to, because I'm training now a group of executives in the company in coaching, try to make it as simple as possible. And then sometimes in the process we lose the structure. To simplify it. So I appreciate this as like a great reminder for us to see that there's a lot more involved, that it's a discipline in that way, there's structure, and we really do appreciate the work of Michael in ensuring that, you know, it is there's no other better way to say it's systematic, and because of that it endeavors to really cover all the areas, the dimensions, the layers of a client's thinking, feeling, and behaving. And if we apply ourselves to it, but then of course we understand that this is a lifelong process for us to master the layers. So I appreciate it, Marzuki, that it's like going back to, I don't even know if this is considered 101 or it's already in the advanced skill, because I on one hand I'm excited to share it to the executives, so on the other hand, do they think they'll appreciate it if they go over their heads? Right. So but at the same time we do see that this is it's like seeing the building from inside and the inner structure. So thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Eldam. Yes.
When you're flashing the questions and you're trying to relate the different what do you call that, friends, systems into the questions. I oftentimes say when we train people that meta coaching, the main difference of meta coaching is that it really has a deep psychological, it's drawn from cognitive psychology, development, etc. And somehow I take pride in sharing that, because to others it's really just steps. But I was just reminded the way you presented the WFO questions and how it actually, each model is aligned to each of the questions. For me, it just I just realized that when we say that our system is deep, I can sense it here. That's why when Adam says it might not be too basic, it's quite advanced, because so it's, for me it's like, so the questions are really backed up. Each question of the WFO is backed up by a certain model. So, and I appreciate how that came into each question. So now all the more I feel more not that I was not convinced, but I feel more confident in telling others that our meta coaching system is really far and beyond, because all of the questions, when you say precision questions, it's because it's backed up. Each question is backed up by a model. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's been a while. So for me, it's like a boom. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa, for saying that. Yes, we need to remind ourselves of the models that is behind meta coaching. So last but not least, Verna, go ahead.
Hi. For me, I find this session a very good refresher. It has been a long while since I've taken a meta coaching course, and even listening to the practicalities of how to apply it with a client is very much helpful. The one that struck me also is about the being able to be what did you say that was, you are not in terms of the content,
Did you say prescriptive?
Aside from the prescriptive, there was the other thing that you said, you don't put your thoughts into something like that. You don't put your thoughts into the to the coaching process, I would say. So yeah, so it's very helpful.
Your content, your needs, yeah.
Thank you, Arzuki.
Thank you very much. And Verna, when you mentioned that, an experience that I value until today, probably because the person value the fact that when I coach, I don't bring in my perspective. A person came up to me and she was having some conflicting ideas about her involvement at church. So it's about the religious work that she's doing, and she knows that I'm a Muslim. I'm not a Christian, and I feel honored because she came to me to help her through her thoughts, because she has confidence that I will not bring in my my thoughts, my stuff into the coaching conversation. Yeah, so that to me was really a remarkable, I would even say a miraculous moment, because she had that kind of trust that I will not influence her in any way. And I was so glad that it helped her overcome her conflict that she had in her mind, and gave her more energy and greater commitment to what she was doing. So that's how I feel that when we coach, it's not about us. The star is the client. The client is the star. So we are just bringing in processes to help them to actualize their highest and best self.
Marzuki, if I may just give feedback to the way this event was communicated, because I think I only saw this somewhere last night in one of the messages, and so also I'm not even sure if the meta coaches in the Philippines got one of this. And even when I asked Vanessa, she said, "Is there such a thing as a systematic coaching by Marzuki?" It was only last night. So good result. So I don't know if, because this is very valuable. So and I'm sure that the other Filipino meta coaches would have come around if there was a way that it was communicated to them. So I don't know how the process was.
So what I'll do is I'll do my best to send out the invitation earlier. It's just that I have the sessions every week. So typically the the invitations will come maybe just a few days before the.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Marzuki, we actually received the invitation via email, but I think what people know, where people normally take note of, it's like a photo, a poster on Messenger. So that's the easiest. So there's a photo and then sort of like a registration link or something.
Yeah, and if you send it to one of us that we know we can see it, we can easily forward it anyway. Right. Last night I just got surprised that there was even an event.
I knew about the event. I was checking if you were the one giving it.
Okay, everyone. It's a pleasure seeing all of you this evening. It is an honor for me to have you joining the session. So I wish you good night, and may you remain safe with you and your loved ones. So thank you again, and good night, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Marzuki. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.